So the big question is this: how these entrepreneurs who started from scratch and had no idea how to sell or market their products or services online and then later on made over 6 figures, 7 figures or even 8 figures became best in their niches and found their dream customers to sell. My name is RJ Ahmed and find this all out in our Interviews with Entrepreneurs show. I interviewed these entrepreneurs and tried to pick their brain of how they actually did that and how they took their business as well as their life to the next level. This podcast is all about the entrepreneurs who strive so hard to become super awesome in their niches. Welcome to Interviews with Entrepreneurs. Welcome to Interviews with Entrepreneurs show where we interview entrepreneurs who are super awesome in their niches. Today we have a special guest on our show who literally not only got started into the particularly into a fitness space and later on kind of like in the initial struggle to make money online in this online industry, internet marketing space, but later on making multiple 7 figures, 8 figures, won multiple Tucom Club awards in different niches as well, and went on like get to come Club X if you know about that, and 2CCC as well, which is like absolutely crazy. Like especially getting into different niches, it's something most people out there focus on one niche, one market out there, and they stay over there. And like later on, transitioning into different things is actually something out there which is crazy. So please welcome Tanner Chidester.
Hey
Hey
man, thanks,
Tanner,
thanks for
thank you
having
so
me,
much,
you
man,
guys.
for being on the show today.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, man, for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here, and hope I can provide some value.
For sure, 100%. So, if people are living under the rock, like, could you provide a bit of your backstory out there, like how you got started in the space and where you are at the moment?
Yeah. So I grew up in a pretty big family. Had 6 siblings. My dad was a teacher, and I was all about sports. I wanted to play football, or American football for anyone who's not in the U.S. And that was pretty much my life until I was about 21 or 22. That's all I cared
Mm.
about, and I got injured to the point where I just knew I wasn't going to be able to pursue it much further, or I wouldn't be a high draft pick. And I got convinced by a mentor to drop out of school. And it was super scary at the time. I wasn't sure if I should do it. I remember my family and my girlfriend at the time were not a fan of it. But I dropped out. I decided to. And I spent 23 to 25 really struggling. But I was learning, all kinds of things about internet marketing and online business. And around 25, I finally figured out high ticket sales, and I started
Yeah.
selling fitness programs for $1,500, $2,000 for 4 months or so, and that's when stuff took off for me. And then since then, I'm 29 now. It's been about 4 years, done around $40 million in sales, and the first year I only did a million. So we've
Yeah.
grown a lot, and yeah, it's been a fun ride, man. It's been a crazy ride.
100%. Absolutely. That is absolutely awesome. So one thing that I really want to ask from you is how you were so consistent at the point where things weren't working for you. Because a lot of people out there try things. Some things work a little bit, some things just don't work out, and they quit. So how you were consistent when things were on the verge of figuring out, like how that initially happened?
Yeah. Well, I almost quit about 5 times. So most people don't know that. But between, 23 and 25, I had probably 4 or 5 instances where I called my mentor and I just said, hey, I'm killing myself to try to make this business work. I'm not making any money. I'm working 12-hour days. I don't know what's wrong. And he would always talk me out of it. And during that time, I was doing door-to-door sales. I was working part-time as a server, and so it really wasn't glamorous. It definitely was not fun. I wasn't enjoying it.
Yeah.
But I think for me it was the simple fact I just didn't want to have to prove my family right, and I also just did not want to go back to school. I just Once I had left, I just had no desire to go back. And between those two things, I basically just told myself I'd rather be homeless than go back to school or tell my family I was wrong. And if you stick with
Mm.
something long enough, you'll figure it out. It's just most people won't stick.
Yeah.
long enough. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Most people just don't stick to it, for sure. So, like during that particular time when you started to transition into things and things started to work out for you, and you made your first million. And one thing which was quite fascinating for me is you won multiple two Karma Club awards, but in different set of markets out there in fitness and coaching, and then in B2C, B2B. So, like for you, how you were able to diversify yourself in multiple different niches, multiple markets, because if you know, like most people say, like focus on one thing and that's it, and they just focus on one thing, they never diversify either in traffic, either in their business model and anything in particular. So like how you were able to diversify later on into different things.
Yeah, so I wasn't planning on ever doing B2B or business coaching. What ended up
Yeah.
happening was I got to around like $130,000 a month in my fitness business, and then our margins started to go down. And
Mm.
I just think it was that we had hit a ceiling, and our costs got too high, etc. And so essentially, what I had to decide was, do I want to pivot and maybe do some more low ticket or something of that nature so I can get my margins back up?
Yeah.
Or do I want to, go into coaching, because I had all these people coming and asking me for help who were trainers, because a lot of trainers saw what I was doing and they said, hey man, like I want to make that kind of money too. And so I think at the time I just didn't have the skill sets I have now. And so if I did, I may have stuck with fitness and kept going. But at the time, I just didn't have the skill set. And so I switched to business because I knew that I could charge, 5 or 10 grand, I could charge more. And I had all these people waiting. So like I at first I started trying to run the businesses at the same time,
Yeah.
but very quickly, within, I mean, like just a month, really, the business coaching took over the fitness business because it was just higher
Mm.
margins. I could spend more, I could be more aggressive. And eventually I was making so much more. I said, you know what? At the end of the day, I just want to focus my time on where the most money is. And so that's
True.
kind of how I transitioned. It wasn't planned. I actually was pretty like, I didn't like a lot of business coaches, to be honest. But it was just kind of an opportunity that came to me and it made sense. And so, that was the quickest path to success in my mind. And that's why I took it. And so it wasn't planned at all. It just kind of happened, to be honest.
Yeah, unplanned things are kind of the best things happen sometimes.
Yeah.
So like as you talked about coaches out there, which is also kind of like everyone is the coach in the space right now. So like what you see is the number one mistake uh, general coaches make. I'm not gonna like niche down in any coaches out there. Obviously there are so many right now at this moment, but what you see is the number one mistake they initially make as a coach, regardless of in which
Yeah.
market they are initially.
Usually it's just a bad offer. It's not good. So instead of selling something that other people want, they sell something they want. And you can
Hmm.
do that as much as you like, but the reality is that's just not a good way to approach. So a lot of times I'll see people, or something that's not tangible. So I use this example a lot. So Tony Robbins, for example, he does. You can kind of look at it however you want. He's kind of like a consultant, but he also does life coaching and
Yeah.
mindset, and like he's kind of like in that realm. And so a lot of times people will see Tony and they don't have the clout Tony does or the popularity, and they're like, hey, I'm going to sell a mindset program or a life coaching program. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they don't tie things down to it that people want. So they'll just say, hey, like I'm going to help you feel better, or I'm going to help you feel happier, or I'm going to help. And
Yeah.
people go, what is, they don't understand what that means. And I don't understand what that means. And so a lot of times they need to make it either, just a no brainer offer. So like an offer I have right now is we go to business owners, we say, hey, look, we'll run your ads. And if it doesn't work, we'll refund you plus 20%. So we take away the
Mm.
risk. So they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do it. So we don't even really have to have a sales call. It's just a really good offer. Or if like you're a life coach, one of my clients actually has one where he lists out 4 things. I think it's wealth, health, business, something like that, happiness. And he says, hey,
Yeah.
at the end of the program, if you don't feel, get a 25% increase in those 4 areas, you get your money back. And so that makes sense to people because like, okay, so if I don't come in and I don't feel like the program gave me that, I get your money back. Now you have to be good at delivering. You also need to be careful if you're giving guarantees, because some people that could really ruin them because they're not good enough to deliver the service. But ultimately the offer has to be good. And if the offer is good, what it does is it makes it easier for someone less skilled or less experienced to make money. For me, something that actually helped me is I became very skilled at selling, but over the years, as I've made better offers, it's become easier for me, not harder, because I actually had to do a lot of selling and marketing to convince people because I
Yeah.
had an offer that was, similar to other people's. And as I've gotten older, I'm trying to make my offers as different as humanly possible so that other people will hire me and they don't have to think about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. It really does make sense. And yeah, as you mentioned, offer is kind of like the most important thing in all of these particular aspects. If they're not like kind of clear on their offers, like people didn't even know like what they're buying. 100%. So like I remember like a couple of months back, I watched your interview with Alex Hormozy. I really enjoyed that interview out there. I watched it multiple times. But my main question around that is, creating your own network is something that is actually important out there for on any level you are particularly. If you're starting out or if you're in a different set of like multiple 7 8 figure and beyond, networking is something that's important. So what do you believe is the initial difference between networking with people out there who are on kind of like a 6 to 7 figure mark, and then going beyond from seven and on 9 figure mark beyond itself? Because obviously you have the set of network of people over there. Like, what do you see is the different mindset shift between those type of people out there who are on that mark, and like from 6 to 7 and 7 to beyond?
Uh, I think one thing in something one of my good friends says is, and this is something that I've adopted is, people who are making 6 or 7 figures a lot of times talk a lot about the marketing and the sales. And then people who are doing, 8 figures are usually talking or more are talking about the product. And something that
Hmm.
I've learned as I've, made more money, I've become more experienced that I'm learning now is that if
Yeah.
I want to become a billionaire or even a mega millionaire, you really have to have something that's easy to sell, which means it has to be really good. And I think sometimes in marketing, it's not that the products aren't good, um, but they're not good enough to where people rave about them, right?
Yep.
And some of the biggest businesses out there, they don't have to hardly do any marketing because their products are so good that they just sell themselves. And that's something that I've really learned. And when you can do that, when you can actually have a product or something that's so good that you don't really have to market it anymore, not only do you have much higher margins, but it becomes much easier to scale and be successful because, I mean, to be honest, a lot of my costs, at least until probably the end of this quarter, was my marketing. And now I've actually created my business where I don't care how much I spend, or I don't try to just spend, make a million, like 2 million a month just to say I did 2 million a month. I'm just
Yeah.
focused solely on the margin. And not only is it less stress, but I feel happier. I make more money. There's more profit. You can pay people better. You don't have to worry. Like, it's just better. So I think the difference in the networking a lot of times is, 6 and 7 is talking about marketing and sales, and then 8 figures is talking about product. And even beyond that, you're talking about bigger ideas. So, some of my friends now, who I have a few friends are actually worth over 100 million. And I mean, they're talking about completely different things. They're talking about private equity. They're talking about buying and selling businesses. It's just another level. And so, there's levels to the game of business, just like there is everything. And I just think the ideas get bigger and bigger, and the emphasis gets changed from just, internet marketing, where it's like marketing and sales, to like actually just having really good products and offers that can sell
Yeah.
themselves. So that would be like the biggest thing, I think.
Well, that's really interesting. So, in that particular concept, if we really believe this, network is your net worth and everything out there, and like what my experience was from the past like 1.5 year, just because of this show, I was able to network with a lot of different sort of entrepreneurs and different marketing, different, which I kind of like dreamed about in the initial start, but later on it was kind of happened. You probably noticed, some students that you had, or like some other people out there that you saw in a daily life. Why you think so they don't have that sort of ability at that moment to network with those people out there who are 10 10x ahead of them, or like they're kind of like starting out, or they're on the 5 figure mark, and they're just not like, having that ability of reaching out to those seven-figure people out there, kind of like building that network connections, which is important. They could learn a lot, but
Yeah.
they just don't have the ability to do it. Why do you think so this usually happens?
Uh, well, I think part of it is understanding the mindset of the people that you might be trying to attract. So a lot of times when people are trying to network, they're thinking about what's the value for them, and
Yeah.
the other side, the person that you may be trying to network with who's super successful, there isn't a whole lot of value for them, right? And so it's nothing against that person, but I think some people, they need to elevate themselves to where they become a person of interest. So for me, to be honest with you, I didn't, and I'm not saying this is the right way, but I
Yeah.
never networked that much with people because I was focusing on getting myself to a level that people would actually want to network with me versus I was just this guy like asking for advice, etc. And so to be honest, like as I've had more
True.
success, what it's actually done is it's opened doors for me where people want to meet me. And so the networking becomes more beneficial because instead of just, oh my gosh, like look at, you're so amazing, like can I pick your brain, they are actually having a conversation with me and they view me more as an equal. And one of my good friends said that typically you're going to be able to access people that are about 10x your net worth or below. So, if you're someone who is making $15 million a year, you probably can't talk to someone who's making more than 150, right? Because
Mm.
they're just too far away. If you're someone who's making 50 grand a year, you probably can't talk to someone who's making more than 500,000. It's just harder to access,
Yeah.
right? And so as you get to higher levels, not only do you have more money to gain access to those people, but people start to hear your name, right? They start to go, oh, have you heard about this guy? Did you hear about what he's done? And so all of a sudden, those people above you are more willing to, I guess, network or get to know you because I think I don't know what it is specifically, but it might be just like a badge of honor where they understand and there's like this understanding that this person's put in the work and they're not just going to come and ask them a million questions. I know for me personally, I don't mind if someone reaches out, but I'm just far too busy to possibly entertain every single thing. And so that's just reality. There's just like, I don't have enough time in the day. And so, for someone, if they want to access me, for example, they typically either have to, possibly do an interview or they have to, become a client, or they just have to be in a situation where we're at the same place at the same time because I'm not going to probably go out of my way with all the stuff that's on my plate. So that would be my answer. I don't know. That's my opinion, at least. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely loved it, 100%. And it makes a lot of sense out there to the particular point that they have to make themselves valuable to an extent where, they can get that attention of the people that kind of like, network with. So 100%, it does make sense. So, like, couple of, I know it's been kind of a long time, but you launched your book, which was Infinite Income, which was awesome. I read that book.
thank you.
Obviously, didn't got that because of COVID over here, but I read the digital version of it. But could you like talk about it? What that book was all about in general? If people like willing to hear about it and go and get a copy if they haven't.
Yeah. So, all I was trying to do in that book was, I was trying to do two things. So, first, to be transparent, I was trying to have like a better lead magnet where,
Yeah,
people could get to know me. Like something I've noticed as I've tried to grow my business bigger and bigger is a lot of people, they've seen a lot of coaches or a lot of programs or this or that. And so they're less trusting, they're more resistant. And so I view that as a great way where people could get to know some of my backstory and what I went through and get value too. Like I tried, in hindsight, now I might have written the book a little different, but at the time I was just trying to make it as short as possible and like to the point and give a lot of value. I wasn't really trying to make it a super long book or
yeah,
fluffy. And then inside the book, I just go through my journey and then the things I did or kind of like the step-by-step process as much detail as you can possibly go to in a book. It's kind of hard to be as concise. And in hindsight, I wish I'd maybe made videos that went with the book in certain chapters. Um, but yeah, that was really the whole point of it. And then the second thing is it's just a great way for people to get to know me, right? And to kind of
yeah.
get the
True.
story and to try to help people because one of the biggest objections or issues for most people who want to get help is they don't always have enough money. And something that I hate when I read books is sometimes I feel like they're all fluff and I just want actionable stuff. That's just me personally. And so I felt like, hey, if someone's willing to spend like $7 or $20 or whatever it's selling for, they can get a lot of value out of this. And that was at least my intention when I wrote it. So
Yeah, 100% loved it. So like as you mentioned about like most of the books are kind of like fluff. So like what were your favorite three books? If you list down three books out there that were your favorite, which are those books?
yeah, so one of my friends wrote a book, Alex Mosey, $100 Million Offers. I thought that was
Yeah,
just a great book. Like I just thought it was. I think he thinks a lot how I do. Like I just thought it was straight to the point, simple, concise, and that there was like one page in that book that really helped me, and it'll probably help me make multi-millions in dollars, just because it was this one idea that was really well presented that I realized I wasn't doing, and so that book to me was like that's kind of like the blueprint on how you should write a book. I thought that was one of the best books I've ever read. One of the other books I really like is High Performance Habits by Brendan Bouchard, and
mm,
doesn't necessarily talk. It's not necessarily just business, but it talks more about how to balance your life with business and how to like get the most out of business, but also be happy, because there's always that
yeah,
conflict. And that was something I felt a lot as I was growing my business. Is I was making a lot of money, but I wasn't really happy, and I feel like I've kind of figured that out a little more as I've gotten older. Um, but I really like that book. And then actually, ironically, he's not my favorite person. Like, well, and I shouldn't say that. I don't know him, but his vibe.
yeah,
But Grant Cardone has a book, and it was I want to think it was 10x. I think it was just 10x or whatever the
yeah,
title is. And that book really just motivated me to really take the next step. And I remember at the time I read that book, I just started making money, and I was probably doing 20 or 30,000 bucks a month. And I was getting a little discouraged. I was like a little burnt out. And I remember there was some quote in that book where he says, um, it's your responsibility to make money for your family. Don't expect someone else to do it for you. And I don't know,
mm,
it just really stuck out to me and impressed upon me. And I really took that to heart. And so, for people who don't know me, two of my brothers work with me, and
yeah,
that's been a huge blessing. And I've been able to help my family financially in different situations, and so that's been a big blessing for me, because that was important to me, because I just never wanted my family to be in a situation where money became an issue, or we weren't able to help each other. And so that really impressed upon me, that book, and it was just like really motivational. Some of the stuff Grant does is like, I think it's a little over the top, but I relate a lot more to him in certain ways because of how he thinks and like how aggressive he is. So those are probably my top three that I actually took a lot of value from, and I remember them because I read about a book a week. So if I read a
mm.
book, it's usually pretty good.
Yeah, loved it, 100%. That's super good. So, like at this time right now, like you've also changing a lot of things out there in your business, and going to the different trajectory. What's the next thing for you? Like, what's the next thing you're focusing on?
Yeah. Well, so right now I'm trying to build my portfolio companies. So I don't plan on running a company ever again. I'll be the owner, but I don't plan on ever being a CEO again. So I've actually got three portfolio companies right now where
Hmm.
I have CEOs, and those are growing consistently. Two of them are already at seven figures in the first couple months. The other one is like getting close, but we're just growing it a little slower. So my goal is really to like grow those businesses with other CEOs, so where I'm just the owner, and then from there, I'm probably going to get into tech. Like I really think that'll be a new challenge for me and something I'll enjoy. And tech companies have really high valuations, and I also
Yeah,
like it because it's still predominantly service based. It's not product based. I'm not a huge fan of product based businesses because there's just so many moving parts. But those are gonna be my main focuses this next year, is just really growing my portfolio companies, and more than likely starting a tech company. I say more than likely because I'm working on it, but it hasn't happened yet, because you got to plan a little bit more than the other businesses I have. I can just start those like today,
yeah,
but with tech, you got to make sure it's a great idea. So I've just been really spending my time with that. But yeah, that's kind of the next chapter for me, and we'll see what else happens. I mean, stuff changes so fast, but I'm kind of past the phase of, I guess, running the business, and I'm more moving into the ownership phase where, I put in a CEO to run it, and I just control it, and I'm able to do other things. And I think that's really going to be how I start creating really crazy amounts of wealth, is just owning stuff, but not actually being the one to run it. If that makes sense.
Wow, that's really amazing. Well, Tanner, thank you so much for being on the show. Where people can be the part of your world.
Social media is always the easiest, right? So it'll just be probably Instagram is the first place to go. Is Tanner.Chidester. And you can either send me a DM or check out my links there, and that's a good place to start.
Yeah, so yeah, guys, I'm gonna post up all of the links in the comment section, the show notes down below. Again, Tanner, thank you so much for being on the show. Any last things that you want to say before we round the show up?
No, man, just thank you so much for having me, and hopefully I gave some value to some people. And
For
I
sure.
think you're doing great things with the show, and I'm honored to be here. So thank you.
Truly appreciate it, man. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching this show. And we're definitely gonna see you guys on the next episode next week. Until then, bye.